if you guys could triple confirm the audio is great, then we could proceed with a peace of mind knowing we're giving you the best experience possible. So, Jordan.
Hey, man.
What's up?
Welcome to Las Vegas.
What's up? I didn't notice you sitting over there.
Thank you. Listen, everybody. So I live in Las Vegas. Peter was here on this, I guess, semi-working vacation. And many of you watching, you may have not heard of him yet. So I just want to introduce him. Peter Valley he's the world's most published author on Amazon selling. If you don't believe me, go to Amazon.com, do a search for his books, type in Peter Valley Amazon. And Peter started selling books to resell on Amazon in 2012. I actually started in 2010, but his knowledge is tenfold of mine.
Wait, dude, I gotta stop you.
Yes.
I started selling on Amazon in 2007.
Oh shit. Okay.
So
you started. The numbers you showed on your blog are 2012.
That was it. That was when I switched to FBA in 2011. Sorry.
Okay, all right. No, that's okay. So yeah, 2012. Okay, so you started selling in 2007. As an example, his sales of books on Amazon in 2012 were $130,000. Many of you know that Peter created Arbitrage.com, which is inarguably the most advanced online book sourcing software available today. He has a free blog. It's called FBA Mastery. It's one of my favorites. I call Peter the Hemingway of FBA because of his writing skills. And every nuance of book sourcing and selling is covered on that blog. So FBAmastery.com. If you are brand new to book arbitrage online or offline, that's something you're going to want to check out. Speaking of Peter's blog, if you scan some of just the blog titles, the article titles in his blog, you'll see how far and deep his expertise on sourcing books online and offline runs. Virtually no one else writes about this, Peter. Things like these are actual blog article titles at FBAmastery.com. My weird Christian textbook experiment that actually worked. The biggest guide to surviving Amazon FBA long-term storage fees ever, part 5. Timed trades, profiting off Amazon trade-in price fluctuations, and how to spot a counterfeit textbook.
Which has a video with Jordan that's amazing.
So listen, if you guys, we started a smidge earlier, so if you guys are just joining us, I'm live in Las Vegas. My name is Jordan Malik from HonestOnlineSelling.com. Peter Valley, I've met him for the first time. Peter and I have spoken over the phone for several years now, probably it's going 6 years now, 5 or 6 years. We've never met each other in person. He's the good-looking one on screen left. I'm the big ugly one on screen right. So this is a real joy. We've been hanging out for the past several hours, talking business, talking life. Peter is an online and offline book sourcing expert. If you're just joining us, and it's an honor to have him here. Just want to do a couple disclaimers, guys, before we continue. You're going to hear me mention Peter's blog several times, FBA Mastery. When I'm going to be interviewing, asking some questions. We're going to be going into detail some things. We're going to take your questions. Probably half an hour, 45 minutes from now, we're going to take your questions. You're going to hear me mention his blog. You're going to hear me mention his software, Zen Arbitrage. Peter did not pay me to be here. If you're watching this now and you decide at the end of the webinar you're going to go purchase one of his books or purchase his services, we're not really advertising them here, but we are going to be talking about them because he's built up such a community of readers and users of his software. I'm not compensated by that, but you are going to hear me say, I said no selling. You are going to hear me talking about Zen Arbitrage, talking about his expertise, his entrepreneurial background. And he's learned a lot from online book sourcing, watching other people succeed using his books and his software. So we're going to be talking some of the success stories. We may end up talking about some of the success stories from Peter's readers or customers. Keep in mind that if you hear results that sound like somebody's making X thousand per month, this is not typical among all of his readers and all of his software users. There are atypical results. I have to tell you that because of Federal Trade Commission. Is that right? FTC rules? Yeah. So your results, if you ever decide to take any of Peter's information, the free information on his blog, or you decide to use his software, your results are going to vary depending on a number of factors, including your skill set, how hard you work, your budget, etc. So I just have to say those. So can everybody, here's people coming in from Chile, Connecticut. Susan, Joe Aki, Rhonda, David from Virginia. Peter, yes, this is going to be recorded. We were recording this live, right?
Yes,
okay. Recording it. It's going to be sent to you guys in a day or two. Susan from Chile, Connecticut. Excellent. Okay. So, Peter, welcome again.
What's up, man? Okay, one more time. So, for the new people. So, Jordan and I just met. I want to say a couple things, too, really quick. So, what we are going to get you the recording of this, and number one. And actually, at the end, we're going to give away a package of stuff, totally free, no strings, nothing weird. There's no, like, gimmick. We're literally just give you a course for free and an ebook, and the recording of this webinar is all going to be in one package. So, I want to make sure I get the recording of this into the program. That's number one. Number two, it's Jordan's birthday, you guys. It's Jordan's birthday.
24.
He looks a little haggard for 24, yeah, but it's still his birthday. So let's all say happy birthday. And I mean that literally. If you jump in the chat box, say happy birthday to Jordan because he deserves it. And I have this is the big surprise, you guys. Now, Jordan, you do not know what I'm about to reveal, right?
I've not seen it. No.
So I have a birthday present for Jordan. And I actually, I was about to tell him what it was, and he's like, "Dude, no, let's make it a surprise on the webinar." Okay, so I'm gonna give this present to Jordan right now. Full disclaimer: Jordan's sense of humor may not align with my own, so I'm gonna. But what this is, it's a video, okay, and it's 90 seconds, so there's no big time investment. So I'm gonna pull up this video right now, and if I can figure out.
Thank you for the birthday wishes. I see it. Thank you. Thank you. I see it there.
Okay, so I'm gonna play this video. So this is something I got. I just want to say very quick, just so we're clear. Jordan, you know that I know high people in low places, right?
Yeah, right.
So I had some people put together. I'm not a hip hop performer myself, but let's just say I may know a few people.
Oh my God.
So I had a custom song made for Jordan. I did not write the lyrics. I just gave them the subject matter. They researched Jordan. They made Jordan a song. And they made a video as well, a hip hop video to go with the song. It's only 2 minutes, 90 seconds. And I just want to say I had no input into either the lyrics or the background of this video. So with that disclaimer, this is Jordan's birthday present.
Jordan Malik is the Amazon king. No end to the profits that he brings you. If you listen to the grandmaster, sell it faster, he a true soul master. Buy low, sell high is Jordan's game. Rose to the top of Amazon fame. Clear platinum, check permission, air lister. His tools rock harder than the Kardashian sisters. From CNBC to Wall Street Journal, Jordan is the man the media calls. Wanna know eBay tricks? Call Jordan. Wanna stack cash, selling used kicks? Call Jordan. Profit off wholesale pallets of cake mix? Call Jordan. The man is a beast on the AMZ. If e-commerce had a Mount Rushmore, there his face would be a legend, a prophet, an eBay gangster. You got a business question, he has the answer. WWJD stands for what Jordan do. Jeff Bezos calls him for advice, fool. Honest online selling is the blog he controls. There's nothing this man hasn't sold. From books to toys to turntables and mics, Jordan drives a Bentley while his competition hitchhikes. From the wholesale warehouse to the thrift shop, so much online you could call him ship shop. From retail arbitrage to cleaning out your closet, Jordan Malik will be a blessing to your bank deposit. Everyone gather round and say it with me. Jordan Malik is the king of A and Z. It's all about honest online selling, online selling, online selling. It's all about honest online selling, online selling, online selling. It's all about honest online selling, online selling, online selling. Everyone hit the street and start selling.
Okay.
Thank you, Peter.
What did you guys think? Like,
What do you guys think of that?
Be honest.
Be honest.
And listen, don't spare my feelings because Jordan had nothing to do with this. And I
thought it was brilliant. But
I have no.
that's just me.
I don't have
The
feelings.
guy kind of looked like me too.
Buy low in all high places.
And thank you. Evelyn says love it. Ann says love it.
Cool. Okay, so that's the fun thing I got for Jordan. He probably will not ever make that public, but maybe he will. Maybe
I'll
you can talk him
I'll
into
send
it.
it to my subscribers. That's brilliant.
Okay.
Terrific. So thank you, Rachel. Hello, Rachel Harris, Neil, Barbara, Matthew, Darlin, Marvin, David. Thank you. Neil says total crack up. So terrific. So I'm going to start this interview, and many of you, I don't know if you know Peter already, but we're going to talk a little bit about his background, just real briefly, and we're going to get right into the fruits of the labor of online book sourcing. So Peter, can we start? Can you tell us a little bit how your life was before you discovered sourcing books on Amazon?
Yeah, I lived in Los Angeles this is in 2007, and I had a sort of a previously like entrepreneurial pursuit that we'll just call it that kind of collapsed. And so I was like flailing for something new. And I lived in LA with my girlfriend, and we just overheard someone at a garage sale. We were at a garage sale just buying stuff because I've done that for years since I was a kid. And we overheard someone talking about buying books and reselling them on Amazon. And I was like, huh. And it just like, I was so desperate at that point for like a new thing that I just picked up a few books from that particular sale and went and looked them up on Amazon. And this is back in 2007. Some of you might remember this. You could literally, without any scanning apps, blindly grab random books and still make money.
Bring them home.
More than often than not. And so we were just like looking up, keying up stuff on our phones and like looking stuff up. And we would, and so I started to turn a profit. And one of the first books I ever got, I bought at a garage sale, was a coffee table book. And it was called O Rio de Janeiro or something. You can look this up. But I got it for $1 and I went home and looked it up, and it was selling for over $600 on Amazon. And I was hooked. Wow. $1 to $600. And to this day, that's one of the most expensive books I've ever sold. And so I was hooked at that point. So at that point, I decided to, there were really no books of it. I don't even remember back in the day, there was like very little training material out there. Like, remember, there was just like almost nothing. And so I just kind of had to make up my own system. And there's a couple people teaching stuff. There weren't any blogs at that point, or barely any. And so I just kind of built it up. And then I switched over to FBA into the very, very, like the first week of 2011. And everything just took off. And
you started documenting things on your blog, right? Probably 2013, 2012.
Yeah, my blog was about 2012 or 13, maybe 13. Maybe what we'll do actually, if you guys are cool, we're going to turn off the chat box, but what we're going to do is turn it back on when we're done with the Q&A. Does that make the most sense?
About half an hour. We'll turn it back on and take questions.
So if you guys are cool with that, I'm going to turn this off, and I'm just going to add a little note. How do I do that? So if you guys are cool with that, let me add a little note just for the people that sign in late. We'll turn on the chat box. So we'll take your questions, like I said, in just a little bit. Okay. Okay, cool. So yeah.
So tell me, the people that are brand new to the concept of online book arbitrage, can you, with your expertise, kind of summarize for them?
Oh, sure. So yeah, this is a big confusion. So we're kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but I was sourcing online.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. But I was totally sourcing offline for like years, right?
Right.
2007 to 2000. I was 100% offline sourcing until 2000.
And where were you going? You were doing libraries, like most
libraries, thrift stores. Like in LA, we would just go. Like, actually, one of the first places I sourced books was the you guys could probably still go there and do this, but Caltech in Pasadena. I lived right near Caltech, the university. They have a big recycling center, not really that big, but a recycling center on campus, and they had dumpsters for every different type of recyclable. Mm-hmm. There was like 12 dumpsters, and one of them was for books. It said books and printed matter.
Right.
And so my girlfriend and I would like skateboard down there like 4 or 5 times. We had no car. And dig through the dumpster for books. We only found books maybe 1 out of like 3 times that we went. And then when we found books, it was a curse because we had to like balance them on the skateboard and like wheel them.
So you were like almost broke.
I was living the struggle. Starting. Oh, dude, it's no joke. I was like living the struggle. And there was this guy named Ponytail, we called him. We saw he had a ponytail, and we'd see him everywhere, like rummage sales, libraries. We would see this guy, and he had this machine, this mystery machine. Uh-huh. It's like it was this huge box with like a big nub at the end, and he was like pushing this, and then some beam came out, and it seemed to look up books. And I found out later it was a PDA with a barcode scanner, but I didn't know what it was at the time. So we're like, what's this Ponytail guy? He gets all the good books. So we kept looking over his shoulder, and one time I caught a glance of the screen. It said a seller tool, which is the old name for like what they call Scoutly. It's not Scoutly now, but we're like, okay, write this down. So we couldn't afford any apps.
Right.
So it's just like this whole thing where so we paid it. The seller tool had this thing where you could pay $5 a month to key in books manually on a flip phone. That's like before smartphones. And so we paid $5 a month and we just do this. And it was like, I mean, dude, it was the struggle.
Just to think that was only 10 years ago.
I know, it's crazy how far we've come. So you guys have it so easy.
You would do that. I remember you reading your blog back in the day. You used to go to wait for the kids to check out at college too.
Oh, dumpster diving.
Dumpster diving.
Dude, I still do that.
Really?
Talk about living the struggle. I still do that. Yeah, but dumpster diving at universities is also like, so you're saying, how did you get started?
Right,
how broke were you?
Right.
Well, we started out going to universities at the end of the semester, dumpster diving for books. And we literally go in the dumpsters because students get out, right, at the dorms, they move out, and they have to fit everything into like the backseat of a Honda Civic. So they throw out like 90% of what they own at the end of the semester. Yeah. And this is not just, it works best in like May or June, but like it's also kind of worse at the end of the fall semester too. And so we would dig through the trash and get books and resell them like textbooks. And it ended up being so lucrative. Yeah. It's something I still do to this day. Right. It's not just something you need to do. You should do if you're broke. But it's a blast. And it's also just a lot of fun.
I always say that the American consumer lives in a throwaway economy, and they throw away everything. And it's not just textbook, it's toys, it's appliances. They just, I don't know, they call it fickle. They're fickle consumers. They get something and you think they would know the value of it, but they ended up throwing it out or giving it away. We're going to get into the definition of online book arbitrage in a minute, but tell me about your transition where you kind of you're essentially what I call the pioneer, really, of doing online book arbitrage. Is that fair?
I mean, I was the first one to teach it. I can't say I was the first one to do it. I don't know, but
okay. But the first expert that I knew of that was talking about it was you. So can you talk about what happened?
Yeah.
What made you just kind of discover that? Or
yeah, I remember. So a lot of us, a lot of you guys can probably relate where you hit this like ceiling, like you hit a plateau with your business model. So I was sourcing books offline, and it was like 4 or 5 years in a row. I was in this narrow range of doing like around $130,000 in sales. And it seemed like no matter how hard I tried, I was kind of always in the same range. And so I hit like a ceiling, right? So I was like, all right, how do I scale this up? Like I could hire people to go out and source for me. That's one model. I could source from like recycling centers and build up a whole warehouse. I was like thinking about that. I could do the private label thing, which has nothing to do with books, where, there's all these different models, right? A lot of you guys know this. So I was like, okay, what's the next move? How do I scale up? And so one day I was in a warehouse. It was my most lucrative book source. And it's still a source I go to often. It's just not where I live anymore. But they have so a lot. When you're sourcing used books, it's like you're paying like $1, maybe $2 a book, right? This source, all their books were $4, which is unusually expensive if you're sourcing offline. But I was still driving an hour to this warehouse, and I was making over $1,000 a month off this one source. So one day I had this light bulb moment. I was delirious, out of my mind, tired. I woke up 6 a.m. to get back to this place. It's where I won't say what it is. It wasn't a thrift store. It was a one of a kind place. They sold used stuff, and so I was like scanning like $4. So every book was $4. So I scanned, okay, $4. Every time I bought a book, I put one in my cart. It was $4. Now, if you guys are old school, meaning you've been around for more than like 2 years, there's a significance to that $4 number. You know what that is? That the vast majority of all books up until about 2 years ago on Amazon were $4. They were a penny plus $3.99 postage, because $3.99 was the fixed amount for a lot of years. Now you can set your own postage. And then because before the new fees were implemented about 2 years ago, you could make a little bit of money off a $4 book. So I had this moment where I was like, why am I driving an hour out to this warehouse in the middle of nowhere, paying $4 for a book, still making tons of money, leveraging the power of FBA to price higher, when the biggest source of $4 books in the world is actually Amazon? And I was like, wait a minute, that's insane. You can't source on Amazon. It makes no sense. But I was like, but everything seemed to fit, where I was like, I'm paying $4 for books anyway. Why couldn't I just buy $4 books on Amazon and then have them shipped to me and then ship them into Amazon FBA and resell them at a higher price?
So let me stop you there, just for people that don't know. So what Peter is saying is when you find a consumer finds a book on Amazon, there's really two types of sellers selling the book, right? So there's one where it's warehoused at Amazon or warehoused by an entity that is able to ship the book to you, the consumer, via Amazon Prime 2 days, right? And then the second type of seller, who may be selling the same identical book, is somebody who's shipping the product from home or from their own warehouse. It's not Prime fulfilled. And for them to be able to to be competitive, they have to sell the book at a much lower price. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
And so, I can get in. So we're going to give you guys a free course at the end of this webinar, and you'll get into more. That will go into more like the grainy details. But the basic idea here is, like, as long as you can accept or understand that FBA sellers can price higher than non-FBA sellers, that's really the only belief is that's necessary to make online book arbitrage work. So I went home and I bought a textbook. I'll never forget. It was a biology textbook. Campbell was the last name. It was like, I think, the best-selling biology textbook. And I bought it for, I think it was like $1 plus postage. So it was $5.
Okay.
I had it shipped to me.
That was from a third-party seller?
Yeah, third-party seller. And it was after this is the next morning after I had this insane idea at this warehouse of like, what if I could buy a book on Amazon, resell it back on Amazon for a profit, which again seems insane, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, because the online arbitrage thing at that point, this is in 2012, end of 2012, was huge, and it still is. But and you're one of the top guys in that world. But no, I never heard anyone talking about buying on Amazon and reselling back on Amazon. It's like buy on eBay, sell on Amazon, buy on whatever, sell. But I never heard anyone buying on one site and reselling back on the same site.
Which is permitted, just so people don't get confused. Some people say, well, you can't. Amazon's policy will not let you buy a product that's sold to you via Amazon Prime shipping,
right,
for you to resell. Now, whether they enforce that, I don't know. But there's volumes of products that are available from a third-party merchant that's not shipped to you Prime. It's shipped by their own in-house method.
Right. That
you are allowed to buy those products, receive them, and resell them on Amazon via Amazon FBA. Correct?
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
And like, I'm not saying I invented this. I just, at the time, I never heard anyone talking about this. So just to be fair. So, and so I went home from this warehouse. The next morning I woke up and you just don't want to go sourcing sometimes.
Right.
I was just like, I don't want to go sourcing. I remember I had that crazy idea. So I bought this textbook, had it shipped to me, and I relisted it $35. So I paid $5, relisted it $35, and it sold in like 10 days. And when you do something once, you just need to do something one time and see it work. And it's like, I remember just being like, the game is like totally changed. Like, now this is how I'm going to scale up my business, right? Now I can just sit on the computer at Starbucks, order books, have them shipped to me, ship them into Amazon. And I started to do it. And I started to do it a lot. And I was getting like, just like these whole bins of books on a daily basis. Yeah. And, it was a little bit easier back then. This is like early 2013 where, there were a lot before the new fees hit and stuff, where it was a lot easier to find like literally books for a penny, right, and then resell them $35. So now it's not quite as easy as it used to be, but it's still plenty of opportunity.
So that's my questions. What's changed really in the past, say, 5 years?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah.
In terms of online book arbitrage.
Okay. Yeah. So what changed in online book arbitrage is basically what's changed in just the book selling in general, or even Amazon selling in general. So, but specifically with books, the two big things I'd have to say that are bad are, number one, the fees, right? So a lot of us, if you've been around for a while, you know, at least more than a couple years, the fees have gotten a lot more severe, right? Specifically with the media category, because Amazon, up until a couple of years ago, gave the media category, books, CDs, like basically a pass. Like there was like reduced fees for books.
Yeah.
And then they said, no, we're equalizing the playing field. So now it's going to be the same fees as every category. And so so sellers that used to be able to sell a book for $10 and, or $7 rather, and put $3 in your pocket, now you need to sell a book for $10 to put $3 in your pocket if you're lucky.
Right.
So the fees for low end books got severe. So so what's changed, number one, is the fees are a lot more severe. So you have to price a lot higher now to get the same amount of net profit, right?
Do you think that increase in fees helped take out a lot of the chafe in terms of sellers that weren't serious? They were kind of half-baked. Or do you think it's that those sellers remain? Because I would think the higher fees to some degree would get rid of the people that weren't really serious about the business.
Yeah. That's a great point. And I think the answer is yes, but I also think that the decrease in sellers does not offset the negative impact of the fees. Right? Like I'm not trying to just blow sunshine. Like I think it's still more bad than good. But yes, one of the positive side effects is that a lot. In fact, as a matter of fact, I have a software developer that works for me, and I had him go in and pull the numbers, like the hard data of we took 5 of the top selling books for the last 2 decades, and we said, okay, several years ago, how many people, or before the fees, how many people were selling this book? And then after the fees, how many people were selling? And I think the numbers dropped by it was 15%.
Really?
So that's not a scientific statistically sound thing, study or anything, but it is like pretty significant, 15%. So it's not like the 50% I would hope for, right? Like I wish all of you would stop selling on Amazon so me and Jordan could have all the money.
So that's actually very important that you bring this up, is that Peter knows the numbers behind the business. So many people just kind of rush into book selling blindly. If you don't believe me, and this is not an advertisement, I need to say this because the numbers are very important. If you go to FBAmastery.com, that's Peter's blog. He has several articles that talk about the fee increases, how they affect your book selling technique, how they affect your book selling profits, what you can do to minimize them, etc. So I think he's the only writer that I personally know of, and I'm pretty well entrenched in the business, that says, okay, so there's these increased fees from Amazon, no matter how you source books, doesn't matter. Here's how to make sure you're on top of things so you're not dinged with the fee increases that Amazon had implemented, X months ago. So Peter, I'm not an expert in online book arbitrage, so my perception may not be accurate. However, I'm seeing, and in my business, I tend to hear a lot more of the complaints than I do the success stories, to be fair. So what my gut tells me is there's a lot of saturation, and again, I'm not the expert. I'm seeing, but I've heard this from some people before. Too many sellers chasing too few books. Too many software platforms that have tried to copy you and have failed, by the way. Peter's software platform is called Zen Arbitrage. This is not an advertisement. He's managed to streamline online sourcing for people like me, a seller like me, who there's too many variables. He'd rather have a software that handles all that for you. That's what the software does. So all these software platforms have come up. All these sellers have entered the market. But to be fair, I've read some testimonials and heard from some users that are making X thousand per month. Can you describe what makes a successful online book arbitrage seller versus a guy or gal that's failing? Is somebody doing, are the successful ones that are doing X thousand per month doing things that the ones that are failing at it are not doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I have so much to say about this, and so I have to, but I'm going to keep it really short.
Good.
But yes, so all I do is just like I basically just coach people in this stuff like all day long, right? So like I really do look closely like the people who do well, what separates them from the people who do poorly. There's a lot of factors. The biggest one of all is that if you're looking, and this is true of any business, if you're looking for push button money, go somewhere else, right? You want to push a button, have money pour you.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist
anywhere.
Number one, doesn't exist. Number two, that mindset will cause you to fail, right? So people come in and they go, okay, I'm gonna buy a couple books, and then they don't sell in 2 weeks, and they go, this is stupid, it doesn't work, right? This is a long game business, not long. It's much quicker returns than like just about any business in the world, but it's not like next week, right? Number one, I think people don't know their numbers, and so it's a very like linear process, but there's like 10 things you need to know. It's not complicated at all. But if people come in and they go, okay, I'm just gonna, like, the simplest version of online book arbitrage is to find a book that has a big gap between the price you're going to pay and the lowest FBA price. That is the most basic version of online book arbitrage. And that can work, but there are a lot of other factors to consider. So if you're trying to decide what's a good book, you have to know the sales rank, right? And actually you need to know the average sales rank. That's the most important.
And then all this could be found free, by the way. If you use a free tool,
Keepa.
Okay, Keepa or Camel, you can find a sales rank for free on Amazon.
Right.
Okay.
Right. You don't need to pay anything for anything I'm talking about. And you can go on Amazon for free. You don't need any paid tools. You can do this totally for free. In fact, the course we're going to give you at the end does not involve any paid tools, and it walks you through this process. But with that said, you need to know the average sales rank. You need to know what Amazon's price is, because you can't price higher than Amazon, right? You need to know if the book is restricted, which Jordan has a tool. Again, he didn't tell me to say this.
Right. Check
permission, though, is something I recommend to all my students. And you need to know, like, is the book restricted? There's a short checklist of things you need to know before you invest in a book. And then you need to be willing to accept that if the price goes down, that is not a freak out situation, right? The price goes down, the price is going to go up too, right? Like the trend over years is downward with books, but it's not like the book is selling for $50 in October and it's selling for $10 in November. It might be selling for $10, but then it's going to be $40, and then it'll be $20, and it's
but that will vary. That kind of cyclical nature back up depends also on the sales rank. If we're talking about a sales dud,
Mhm.
that's $1 million, $2 million, $4 million.
Mhm.
I'm just making those numbers up of sales rank. That could be a downward trend that does not end.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Okay. But if some of your more successful sellers are saying, I'm only going to source books merchant fulfilled that are 150,000 sales rank and better, so meaning 0 to 150,000, and they know that if there's a downward trend, it's temporary, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's X amount of sellers, and they know how to navigate that. Is that fair to say?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to, in the most simplest terms, because again, I could go on forever, but the most simplest terms is as long as you're buying the right book, so you understand the numbers, the sales rank, you understand, what you can sell it for. If you know that, it really the only things you can control are buying quality books and then your repricing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So almost inevitably, if someone goes, I bought 50 books and they're not selling, if I look in their account, almost inevitably they have not been repricing their inventory. Meaning keeping their price. It doesn't mean lowering them all the time. It means lowering them, raising them, whatever, but keeping them, what I call optimized.
Okay.
So, and they're not keeping their prices competitive. So as long as you cover those two things, that addresses like 90% of the problems.
Interesting.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you guys are just joining us, I'm talking to Peter Valley, online sourcing book expert. We're talking about the business model of buying books low online, mainly on Amazon. I want to ask you another question about that, and reselling them at a higher price via Amazon FBA. If any of the things that we're talking about are unclear, there's going to be a free gift at the end that's going to spell this out in a lot clearer fashion for you. And if any of you are stuck and you want to just learn right now, this is free. A lot of information on Peter's blog, fbamastery.com. Peter, in online book arbitrage, when I dabbled in it, there was sites like AliExpress, not AliExpress, Abe Books.
Abe Books, yeah.
And a couple others. Where is the low-hanging fruit? Is the low-hanging fruits almost universally finding a merchant fulfilled book on Amazon that's selling for 30 to 70% less than the FBA price? Or are there little pockets of profit that you could go to on finding a book on eBay, finding a book on Abe Books?
Sure.
There's got to, how many book selling sites are there?
It's like over 40. So
okay, over 40 majors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So to answer your question, one of the things I noticed with like my top students is a lot of the top guys and women will source the majority of their books not on Amazon.
Really?
Yeah. And it's interesting because it is hard to, bookfinder.com, right? You put an ISBN and it will scan over 40 other book selling sites. And then you've got your Clear Platinum that kind of, streamlines that process. But so if you search, if you go through Bookfinder, scan over 40 other sites, the majority of the time Amazon will be the cheapest offer. But when Amazon's not the cheapest offer, sometimes the other sites are lower by a dramatic amount. So a lot of people just focus on Amazon and they think Amazon's the only game in town. They don't click over to Bookfinder. They don't search Bookfinder, which again scans automatically with one click over 40 other sites. And so that's a huge trick that a lot of people do.
So are those independent bookseller sites, Abe Books, for instance, are they kind of monitoring Amazon's third-party merchant sites and lowering their price accordingly? Or are they kind of pricing independent of that?
I think there's a combination. I think it's just generally the market tends to equalize across all platforms. I think there's a sort of vague economic factors, but I do think there's also repricers that will, automatic repricing software that will just say, we'll compare every site and just kind of match Amazon. Like if you're, it'll list you, what is the one, like NitoScan, for example, will list you on like 10 platforms, your books for sale, and then, keep your price close to Amazon. So I think everyone else prices tend to stay very close to Amazon, is my point.
Okay. All right.
But when they're not, some college student goes on eBay and he doesn't know anything what the book's worth, puts it on eBay and you get a $10 book, a $40 book for $10.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's free tools out there. Like I use If This Then That, which is ifttt.com. So and this doesn't apply to books. Well, it applies to books. I just haven't done it for books, but I've done it for toys, etc. Where I find something and I'm like, I just want to be alerted when eBay posts this book for sale. And a free tool like If This Then That, which is ifttt.com, has these things set up. It's plug and play, so I can actually, for free, I'll get an email alert anytime a book goes for sale. Book goes up for sale on eBay, so I can buy it within a certain price point to resell. So pretty fascinating stuff. So I had one more question for you before we jump to seasonality. Is there any advantage to buy and hold? So let me rephrase the question. You're a fan of textbooks, sourcing textbooks, and there are other niche category of books that are profitable. Let's focus on textbooks for a minute. Is there a seasonality where, and I don't know what the peak textbook buying season is, but like on an off month, like a 4-month difference, are online independent booksellers or third-party merchants or Amazon FBA, are those prices plummeting on the off season and then coming back up? Does that happen? I call it buy and hold.
Yeah.
It's in pockets, or it's like a universal thing that happens all the time.
So one of the things I tell people is like, so there's what they call the textbook season, right? So particularly in regards to textbooks, sales spike dramatically in early August and then the first week of January. Right?
Prices or sales or both?
Sales and prices not as dramatically as you would think, but prices do go up as well.
Okay.
And so those, that's what they call the textbook season. And so, we had I had one student make $87,000 in August off of textbooks, right? Wow. Whereas the rest of the year, he's not doing 87. He may be doing 30 or something. Okay. So the point is sales go up dramatically. But to answer your question, I always tell people that it's like a glass half full versus glass half empty thing. A lot of people think textbooks only sell during textbook season. And that's like totally false.
Okay.
It's the textbooks sell year round. I mean, there's so many like online courses and higher education does not follow this like rigid all the classes start in September, they all break for there's a lot of variety, right? So the point is textbooks are selling year round, but they go way up during the textbook season. It's not that they only sell during the textbook season and they're non-existent. You can actually look at Keepa. A lot of you don't know Keepa. Keepa is just like insane. That's free. It's so powerful. But you see like sales charts for the frequency of sales, price charts, historical price charts, and you can see for any textbook, demand will be it will just quadruple during August and January.
So this is where I don't know if many sellers pay attention to this. They want to find books online and resell on Amazon, and they're going to focus on textbooks, and they're not watching the sales cycle, which is you and I talked earlier today about the people that even on your blog alone that's free, or your Zen Arbitrage software. There's you have 60 videos on Zen Arbitrage about training people how to use the tool and what to look out for. And I think there's not all your customers or my customers, for instance, the same problem, that they just want the instant results, and nobody's patient enough to say, okay, well, let's delve into this, because they may be completely bypassing an opportunity where they just have to wait 4 months. And alternatively, buy the book now and wait 4 months for this sales to peak. So is that a problem? People are too short. Some of your customers are too short-sighted to see that cycle. And
sure,
does that happen?
Yeah. Well, so I would never tell someone to buy something that they only expect to sell 4 months down the road. So you know what I mean. The way I look at textbook season is that it's your safety net. If it doesn't sell in the time frame you expect it to, you've always got textbook season.
And you have a strategy in your blog where you talk about raising prices. Oh, yeah. And you say people don't do it enough.
Right.
Is that right?
Right. They underestimate what they can sell their books for, so they end up selling them for lower than what they could.
Fascinating.
And one of my biggest breakthroughs in this business, unrelated to online sourcing at all, was when I remember I was on a webinar like this. Where I was where there were $2 million+ booksellers, like guys way bigger than me, who were in a conversation, and we had this moment where it was like, someone posted kind of like this in the chat box. They said, "Hey, how would you price this textbook?" And I thought I was so smart about my pricing. I was like, "I'll show these guys." So I was like, "All right." So there was this textbook. So we looked it up on Amazon live on the webinar, and I was like, "I'd price that textbook for $25." I looked at these guys, and they were like, I was expecting them to go, "What an outrage! You're insane!" And they're like, one guy was like, "I'd price that for $50," and the other $1 million seller was like, "I'd price that at $100." And I realized that I didn't even fully understand how aggressive you can price, particularly textbooks, as an FBA seller, and still get sales. People underestimate it.
So in your travels and your conferences, you've actually come across independent Amazon sellers that are doing 1 million+. Oh,
totally, absolutely.
And are these guys? I would assume some are just working out of their. At that stage, you got to have a warehouse, not warehouse, pre-fulfillment center taking in your books for you? No,
Probably.
Okay.
I mean, it depends. There's lots of ways you can do it, but sure. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, I talked to someone who talked to a guy, I think the guy that runs NitoScan or something, who I don't know personally, but he was saying, oh, those guys doing 1 to 3 million, they're not even, because, you know, this guy knows, he sees, you know, he's all the big guys are their customers. And he was like, the 1 to 3 million guys aren't even, those guys are nothing compared to what some people are doing with books.
It was an interesting thing, guys, that if you're new to this, used books, whether you source them online or offline, Peter's done both. I've done both. Many, and I love talking about this because many sellers will turn their nose up to it. People that are doing private label, wholesale, retail arbitrage, they turn their nose up to it because it's dirty, because they're used, and there's so much money in you. Whether you talk about used books, or you talk about used kitchen appliances resold on Amazon, used toys, which I call collectible. There's a lot of money in used. Whether you take anything away from this, go where people are too good to go to. So if you're just joining us, I'm talking to Peter Valley live. Peter is. Can I disclose which state you live in or no? No. Okay. All right.
I don't really live anywhere.
Okay. So Peter, I call him the nomadic ladies man, because he doesn't really live in one spot for too much, but he's visiting Las Vegas. He's at my house. I live in Las Vegas. Peter's visiting. If you're just joining us, and we're going to open it up for questions in not even 2 minutes from now. But if you're just joining us and you want to learn right away for free, you can go to fbamastery.com. fbamastery.com. That's Peter's blog. A lot of free information there. Those of you who stay to the end of the webinar will get a free gift that's going to help you get started in online book arbitrage. So, shall we open it up to questions?
Well, I want to say one thing. Shout out your blog, because a lot of my readers, I think they all know of you, but I just want to be sure. Shout out your blog.
Oh, okay. My blog is honestonlineselling.com. If you want to learn about sourcing virtually from anything wholesale, private label, retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, you can get some information for free from my blog, honestonlineselling.com. Subscribe to my newsletter if you want. Click on the top. I send out free information all the time. So thank you for the plug, Peter.
And for those of you tuned in late, it's Jordan's birthday. So
23 today.
Yeah, 23. A little, like I said, a little haggard for 23. But this is cool because and if you really tuned in late, we're meeting for the first time.
We met for the first time in 6. We known each other for at least 6 years.
Yeah,
we've talked on the phone. We've emailed. We've sent each other referrals, customers, newsletters, but we've never met in person. It's the first time.
I think we've shared a girlfriend or two. I don't remember.
We probably yeah. If they're under 25, they're yours.
Yeah. So what we're going to do, we'll open the chat box. And what I want to do right now is actually, let's make this free gift available to you now. I don't want you guys to get too distracted, but let me go ahead and put that gift up if I can find it. And so you should see, you should see a link in the chat box.
You're giving all this away for free? Crazy.
I'm insane. No, but so I want to let you guys just briefly before we go to questions, just let you know what we're getting. We're not selling anything, right? This is totally free. This is not something where like you watch it and you have to go buy something to make it work.
I've seen this. This is all your information. You're giving all this away.
I mean,
okay. If you insist, that's a great deal.
So it's what it is, the 3-part course, a mini course. It's about an hour, but it teaches you how to go on Amazon, no tools required, and like search for books and the basic principles. And then there's an ebook version that has interviews with experts in the subject and not me. And then there's just a bunch of videos. There's a bunch of stuff. So you should see that in the chat box. If you have any issues, I don't know if I tested this link yet. So I guess if it's not working, we'll find out.
If it's not working, type it in the chat.
Yeah.
Type in the chat room that it's not working. We'll take care of you.
So I'm opening the chat box up right now. And basically, we can talk about anything. So it works. Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's totally free.
Thank you, Neil.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. So totally free, and
thank you, Gary Young.
Young.
Well, how about a Las Vegas conference? Would you do a conference live in Las Vegas at one point? Maybe. No.
I don't know about a conference.
Hey, let's look at Bill's question. Can we read this?
Yeah.
Okay. Bill says, Peter, please speak to why books are an ideal product to sell. No breakage, unlimited source, etc. Bill, you just answered it. Thanks, Jordan. Check permission. Save me a ton of money. Thank you for mentioning that, Bill. I am retired and making more money selling books than I did working as a professional. Wow. Bill, hey, good job, man.
Bill.
Okay, so he says I think he knows the answer, but he wants you to speak why books are an ideal product.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Short answer, they're everywhere. everywhere, right? Used books are everywhere. They have low perceived value, meaning if you go to a garage sale, a DVD will be selling for $4 and the books will be $1. When the cover price of the book is $30 and the DVD cover price is $7 or whatever. It's low perceived value. People just think they're garbage. They're cheap. They're everywhere. And they're in such abundance that it's easy to, buy low and sell high.
Low return rates. Did you mention that?
No, I didn't mention that.
Okay, is it true?
I don't know. Is it
low
true?
return rates.
I don't sell much outside of books. I don't know what toys are.
But they got to be lower compared to like clothes.
What's the return rate for do you know?
Oh, I get very low returns overall, but books historically for me have been almost like a near zero return rate.
There you go.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the margins are insane. Yeah.
Okay.
He's passed $9,000. Gary said he passed $9,000 in 30 days. Thanks, Peter. So I guess Gary's not to plug too much, but he's a Zen Arbitrage member. What's up, Gary?
By the way, Zen Arbitrage is Peter's platform. Peter has software that helps. This is not mandatory for you to sell books, but if you're interested, because Gary just mentioned it, zenarbitrage.com is Peter's software that he spent a lot of money on to create that helps streamline online book sourcing.
Terry's asking, when will the Facebook group be starting? So Terry is going to be the unofficial moderator of the Facebook group. So I don't want to I don't know. I don't want to pre-announce anything.
Peter and I are both. We don't have Facebook groups. And who knows what'll happen.
So I do have a Zen Arbitrage Facebook group, but that's only for members. So I think you're talking about a more general group. So that'll happen.
Jerry has a question about dust covers, which
Yeah. So Jared, to answer your question, Jerry's asking, can you sell books on Amazon that don't have dust covers? I think the specific rule for this on Amazon is that any book without a dust cover has to be listed as acceptable condition.
With a dust cover.
Without a dust cover. If it doesn't have a dust cover.
Oh, I'm thinking of the clear thing that the library.
No, I think you're just
asking a jacket.
I think you're just asking about the jacket.
Okay.
I think. I don't know,
right.
But so that's but I personally list books without dust covers is good, and I don't think I've ever gotten bad feedback. But I'm a rule breaker, so don't do as I say necessarily. Matthew. Here's the thing: don't ever have one mentor. It's the biggest mistake you can make. You get diversified opinions because so you want Jordan, doesn't have to be me, but Jordan, whoever else. I would say get multiple mentors.
Yeah. Don't you find different focuses, Matthew, on what you want to specialize in? If you want to specialize in used books, he's the guy to go to. There's other experts in other fields. So that's a good question there from Max. Discuss mega sellers. Max says discuss mega sellers using FBA and pricing it. Okay, so Max, is he talking about FBA sellers that are lowering the prices to match?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah. I have an answer for that, but if you want to go for that.
Dude, take it.
Okay, so Max, I think what might be happening there is either an FBA seller is getting desperate. Stop me, Peter, if I'm going somewhere wrong. FBA seller is getting desperate, or sometimes FBA sellers are not paying attention, and they think the lowest FBA price is the merchant fulfilled price, and it's not. Because doesn't Amazon display your software? Doesn't. Your software corrects the problem. But when I'm going through the Amazon interface and I'm lowering a price, it's advising me to lower my price, which happens to be the merchant fulfilled price, even though my product is stored at FBA. No?
I missed the first part. Sorry.
Okay, so he's saying discuss mega sellers that are on FBA,
right?
But they're pricing their FBA fulfilled products at the merchant. They're matching the merchant fulfilled price. Right. To me, it's a problem because now is it a problem because they're just desperate to make the sale? The FBA seller is just desperate to make the sale, and they're going to say, "I'm going to compete and just match the merchant fulfilled pricing," or are they inadvertently looking at the wrong data? They're not competing with the other FBA sellers. They're looking at the merchant prices and saying, "Oh, this must be the lowest price."
Yeah.
Fulfilled. FBA fulfilled.
I think in categories outside of books, what you're saying is accurate.
Okay. Yes.
I think within books, because there's such there's more cheap used copies in the books category than any other category, right?
Okay.
And so the point I'm making is I think people don't understand the so the point is in other categories, usually the merchant fulfilled and FBA prices are within range of each other.
Oh.
But what the reason online book arbitrage works is because that's less true in the books category. The gaps are huger. So I actually don't think it's with books. It's what you're saying. I actually think it's people don't understand the concept of what I call pricing leverage.
Okay.
Meaning that as an FBA seller, you can price way higher and still get sales. You're not competing against merchant fulfilled. If you're a newer seller, you've never read stuff from the various people in the space who know what they're talking about. You would not know that you can price higher, right?
Okay.
And I remember I read the first book. There was a good period of time where when FBA started, where I was not an FBA seller, but people hadn't quite figured this out yet, that you can price higher and still get sales. And I think the first time I read about this was Nathan Holmquist, who does the blog Books to the Future. He had a free ebook, so I don't think he gives away anymore, but it talked about, hey, you can buy books for a penny, or that are otherwise a penny, and sell them for $10. And this was like a revelation to the world at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of people don't get this, and that's why they compete with merchant fulfillment.
Right. Interesting. So they either don't know what they're doing, or they're sourcing books at the wrong. They're sourcing books that are of too much of a poor sales rank.
Yeah,
it could be.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
so the worse the sales rank,
right,
the closer the gap that you're going to see between the merchant fulfilled and the FBA price. Generally,
generally, yeah,
there's pockets of profit.
Yeah, generally, but also the lower the demand for a book, the less aggressive you should try to price. Like, in fact, when a book's ranked worse than 1.2 million, I'll just match the merchant fulfilled price.
Okay.
Because there's not a customer coming around long enough for me to expect to be able to get a high price sale.
All right, let's
try to get some of your other questions. Okay. Andy's talking about let's read this one. So Andy says, Jordan, you mentioned you had check permission that allows you to see if you're gated or not, referring to restricted products that Amazon doesn't allow people to sell when doing retail arbitrage. So can you choose to purchase it? So you can choose to purchase it or not. Please advise what the name is again and what the real benefits are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and Andy, great. Sorry to interrupt you. Andy, great question. Andy is referring to, we're a tiny bit off topic. Andy's referring to my software called checkpermission.com. Checkpermission.com will show you immediately when you're on Amazon's page looking at products, or if you use Inventory Lab to list your products, it will immediately tell you whether or not you are, as an individual seller, or if you're allowed to sell that product in certain conditions. Andy, you're correct. You do not need my software for you to find out. If you have the Amazon phone app in your hand, for instance, you can type in the ASIN or look up the product in the Amazon phone app. It will immediately tell you whether or not you are restricted to sell that product when you go to try to list it using the Amazon app. If you don't want to use your phone and you're on the computer, you can go through the process, and you didn't have check permission, you can go through the process of trying to list the product, and at some point during that listing process, I forget which exact point it is, Amazon will tell you, no, you're not allowed to sell it. So all check permission does, checkpermission.com, all it does, it gets you the information when you're on your computer sooner than later. All it is a time saver. And the information that check permission draws to tell you, the seller, whether or not you're permitted to sell a certain book or a certain item, is drawn directly from the Amazon API, which is a fancy name of saying that our information that we display is directly extracted from Amazon's official information. Hope that answers your question. Do you need check permission? No. You can find out the information. People use check permission because it speeds up. They're immediately alerted visually looking at their computer as to whether or not they can sell the item, as opposed to waiting, as opposed to opening their phone app. Thank you for that question, Andy.
So this one's good. Gary's asking about Amazon's marketplace fair pricing policy, which is essentially I'll read the question. How does this affect, how will this affect online book arbitrage is essentially what he's asking. So to clarify what this is, it's essentially Amazon created an algorithm recently that decided that the algorithm's purpose was to deactivate listings they perceived as being FBA offers are perceived as being too aggressive and basically too high. Okay. And so there was a 3-month window where it was pandemonium amongst an arbitrage members, where it was actually a very scary time because a lot of our sellers, a lot of our members were having issues where Amazon was deactivating their listings and not basically just not letting them sell products.
So Amazon would take a look if the merchant fulfilled price was $9 and you were an FBA seller that's selling a book for $81.
Right.
And this Amazon fair pricing policy would deactivate your FBA listing.
Yeah.
And saying, oh, gee, you're not priced fairly.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, I just wanted to explain that to you.
Yeah. And it was like seemingly random where people would oftentimes like delist their item and then price it higher and Amazon would allow it. It was just totally insane, right? Mm-hmm. And so it caused a lot of drama. But anyway, the point is, in the last 3 weeks, Amazon seems to have understood that the books category in particular, what they were doing is they're actually looking at Camel. They were comparing third-party sites and saying basically all FBA offers have to be within range of the lowest third-party offer, or third-party site offer, meaning eBay, which is insane because like how many counterfeits are there? You're not competing against counterfeits. How many international editions are there? You're not competing with those.
Interesting.
So I think Amazon figured out the books category is you can't have one algorithm for every category. And so, but to answer your question, this has all been correct in the last few weeks. Not entirely. We're still seeing this crop up a little bit, but by and large, everyone who had deactivated listings now have their listings active again. So
the funny thing is, and not to interrupt you, Amazon's actually listening to its sellers. If something like this happens, the sellers are going to make a lot more noise, and the end consumer who's buying the book is going to be celebrating it. So I'm seeing more and more Amazon being more proactive with sellers' concerns. And this is like one of like 7 examples. I witnessed like 3 or 4 of them myself that had nothing to do with books. But it's very interesting that some sellers are making so much noise about something. Amazon quickly retreats on something.
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
You know, I want to give you credit for something. I don't think I ever told you this, but we were talking on the phone about 1.5 years ago, and I think it was over the long-term stores. There's some issue that was affecting booksellers, and one of the things you said to me on the phone, which I thought was genius, was you're like, listen, don't look at each problem and assess whether or not it's going to like be the end of book selling. Look at things like this. If Amazon is basically a giant algorithm, it's just a numbers game for them. If they see that their revenues drop 0.01% over any change they make, 0.01% of a large number is still a very large number. And so they are going to retreat immediately.
Right.
So I think every single, you know how the dramas go, right? You guys probably, if you sell on Amazon, you know, every few months there's some new crazy drama. The sky's falling.
And the sellers freak out.
Everyone freaks out. It's the end of Amazon selling, book selling, whatever. And then, but I always remember what you said, and I'm like, will this cause the revenue to drop 0.0001%? And if the answer is yes, I don't freak out because I know they're going to retreat from it. And they did with this thing.
And it's almost like, because at this stage in the game, I think third-party sellers, period, regardless of the product category, like you, like me, like the guy selling kitchen appliances, they're making up over 50% of Amazon's total sales, correct? It's 45%, 50%, 52%, whatever it is. So Amazon knows which side of bread there is buttered, and they're not, if they tick off too many third-party sellers, they're very wary of that. They don't want to see any mass exodus of sellers that are contributing to their bottom line. So let's get to some more questions.
Gary, again, one of our awesome rock stars, says, sometimes I buy textbooks off season, list them merch fulfilled, and then relist them FBA at peak season.
Very smart,
That's
Gary.
very smart.
So Gary's buying textbooks off season. What's an off season month? July?
Sure.
Okay. Gary's buying textbooks July, storing them at home, merchant fulfilled. He'll list them at a reasonable price where he can make a profit. And he'll hang on to them. If they don't happen to sell, Gary will send them into Amazon's warehouse during the peak textbook season to sell them via Amazon FBA. Right? Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're not going to get to every question. So I'm just kind of skimming. I hope you guys don't mind. It's probably too much for us to go into. I have to actually catch a plane here pretty soon. So forgive me if I don't get to every question.
Right. Peter's got a flight in a couple hours. But torrents? What is the best way to source books outside of thrift stores and library sales?
That's a big question.
So online, of course.
So yeah, there's online, but there's there's so many sources, right? So there's like, I love overstock stores, or these kind of weird sort of used goods store, or not used goods stores, but stores that kind of just deal, like, they're using poor areas where they get like runoff from like discards from other stores.
Torrents. Here's a quick, what I noticed, because I moved here to Las Vegas a few years ago, and I got in a little bit of a financial bind where I had to go out and do some hustling myself. This is the past 3 years ago. But if you go to the lower economic areas, and this is not a discriminatory statement, the thrift stores and the libraries in the poor areas, I don't want to support less economic advantaged areas, you may be surprised at how well you do. I find little nuggets of gold in that. Also, keep your eyes peeled for Craigslist ads. People, not necessarily big volumes of books, but people selling little pockets of books. I'm getting rid of my nursing manuals. Craigslist estate sales.
Yeah.
Look up estate sales. People are putting all their contents of a home up for sale. Storage auctions. Find out where your local storage auctions are. There's some more resources.
Also, I love university surplus stores or auctions are amazing, and most people miss these. A lot of larger universities have a store on campus or the edge of campus where they just sell their used stuff, and it's almost totally off the radar. Of
that's right. Your local university, I know UNLV has auctions every now and then. A local university,
where you can just buy pallets of books.
Yep,
that's a big subject though, so it's probably too much to go into. But let's see here. Donald saying I have a terrible time setting up a sales account on Amazon. I'm trying to set up an Amazon account and a prep service. I'm enrolled in Arbitrage and the Facebook group. Haven't bought a book yet. So this is another thing that's been troubling a lot of sellers is when they try to get started selling on Amazon, setting up a new account has gotten harder. Have you heard this?
I have not heard this.
No. So they're asking a lot of sellers to submit paperwork now. It's affecting overseas people the most. I looked over the shoulder of a friend of mine and set up an account recently, and it was totally fine. But there's some, Amazon has an algorithm that flags people or whatever. They have to ask you to like photocopy their ID and stuff. The one thing, Donald, to answer your question, the biggest thing I found that the reason Amazon rejects applications is if the addresses on every document don't match to the letter, because they have people that are essentially just robot humans that just, if there's like one letter difference, they just reject it, right? So everything has to match up exactly. And the other thing I would say is follow their instructions to the letter. If they say submit every page of a document, don't submit 7 out of 8 pages of your bank statement. Submit 8 pages. Does that make sense? So you really want to.
Donald, Donald, if you still have trouble, there is a way that I've found. He needs a seller account to do it. So he's saying I'm having a terrible time setting up a seller account. Yeah, Donald, if you still have trouble, email me. Let me see if I can poke around. My email address is Jordan Malik, JordanMalik @gmail.com. Maybe I'll be able to find a way. I don't know, phone number or something to be able to help you out. Okay, cool. I can't promise you, but I will see if I can find something.
Jordan, we're getting a request for check permission for Firefox. So take note.
I'm sorry. No, it's only available for the Chrome browser.
Lack of strong Wi-Fi in these thrift stores that give me a headache. Jerry, I can resolve that pretty easily. The Scoutly app.
How do you spell that?
It's SCOUTLY. Okay. Allows you to download the Amazon database into your phone. So, I one of the biggest mistakes I made was relying on a cell-based scanning app for years, and I can tell you it cost me an untold amount of money. So,
Jerry, the drawback to that is going to take up a lot of space on your phone. A and B, you've got to update it frequently. So if you download it to your phone, that data is only there for that one time, and 2 weeks later, the data may have changed. Of course, it's going to change. It's the sales rank, etc. So you have to, if you're an active thrifter, you have to download the data every day, every 2 days to make sure you're up to speed.
Yeah, which is fine, because here's the thing: by the time the books get to the warehouse, like people say, oh, sell data is like it's like more recent, it's like current. But by the time the books get to the Amazon warehouse, the data's already changed anyway. Right. So it's like you don't need data that's like,
Joyce, this is unrelated to book selling, but Joyce has a question about my check permission software. This is not a plug, Joyce. I want to answer your question real quickly. No, there's not a way to have it on your phone or tablet, but the free Amazon seller app will tell you when you scan an item whether or not you're restricted from it or not. So Google it, download, find Amazon's official seller app. They have an official seller app for iPhone and Android and probably a couple others. When you use that, that's what I use when I'm in a store. That will tell you if you're permitted or not to sell an item.
Terry said he had a lot of books deactivated because of the high pricing error issue that we just referenced earlier. Even though there were many higher offers, the algorithm was just beyond broken, right? And so Terry,
it was indiscriminatory. It was just randomly picking sellers.
Seemingly, I mean, who knows? But Terry, most of those issues have cleared up for people in the last few weeks. So Tim, we can read this one. It looks pretty interesting. Tim says, I've had good success selling previous editions of textbooks, particularly when the price of the new edition, new version is substantially higher than the previous edition. How long do you keep faith with previous versions until the newest edition will clearly override the previous one? Okay, so you're asking how long can you trust that an older edition of a textbook will be in steady demand? And the short answer that I always give is textbook demand book demand in general will coast to a stop over years, not weeks or months, right? So like if you buy a book now and the average rank is 150,000, it's not going to tank to 900,000 in 3 months. you can safely assume that book will be in demand for quite a while. It's not, there will be a downward trend in demand, but people, one of the biggest mistakes people make is they go, okay, I need to buy the newest edition of the textbook because when the older editions don't sell anymore, and that just completely misunderstands a lot of things, right? Like, we can't possibly know all the forces that go into why older textbooks sell.
And it will change from one textbook. Tim is asking, like, what are the indications? The indications are going to vary from one textbook to another. So there's a new edition coming out of textbook A. That time span between the previous edition is going to be very different from textbook B.
True.
Right? The publishing schedules are going to be markedly different.
Right.
From one textbook to another. But that's a great question. And Tim, I think what Tim is saying is he's probably finding these. Other sellers are ignoring it because it's not the latest edition.
Right.
And he's finding these little pockets of profit, which is very smart. And he's probably rinsing and repeating the same textbook, which is very smart, Tim.
And the way, honestly, the way you mitigate against the risk of a book not being in demand is to simply defer to the average sales rank, right? So we show that as an arbitrage, but keep it as a free way to do it. And if you defer to that, that doesn't lie. So if the average rank indicates a book is selling one copy every week, it just is. It doesn't matter if it's 100 editions old. It's just that the data doesn't lie, right?
If you're just jumping in right now and you're new to this, or you guys are watching this and you're confused, FBA Mastery is Peter's free blog. Excuse me. It's going to have a lot of resources for you to learn about book sourcing online and offline. Do you still have the link up for the free?
Yeah, you guys can see the link, right? I assume that's still out.
Okay, so there's a free link here that's Peter's free online book arbitrage course, the ebook, which you shouldn't be giving away for free, but he's giving it away for free anyway. Jump on this, guys. It's a freebie.
Well, in all seriousness, like I'm not saying I'm altruistic or anything, but like I wanted something available for people that didn't want to pay for tools. You know what I mean? So this free stuff we're giving you, no tools required whatsoever.
That's true.
So Anderson, what about Jensen Books lowballing many listings with FBA offers so low? Yeah, here's what I say about these mega sellers, the FBA sellers that price their stuff.
So sorry, Jensen Books is not a publisher.
They're an FBA mega seller.
They're mega seller, and they're lowballing. Okay.
And they're one of the worst lowball offenders. And I just say don't check, find out how many copies they have in stock. And if they've got 50 copies of a book, just don't even try to compete with them.
Is there an app that will tell you that or no?
Yeah, there's an extension called How Many.
And that still works today.
Yeah, it still works. And actually, Keepa has a free version of that, but it doesn't work as well as How Many. Something about How Many, they can get more data than Keepa can. Don't ask me how.
Interesting.
But How Many is like $15 a month.
Google it. How Many is a Chrome extension that will tell you how many quantities a seller has of any particular item.
Okay, so Gary's mentioning how they just eliminated. So this is a question I actually didn't get to finish, which is what's changed, right? So in the last 5 years or so, or 3 years, with online book arbitrage. So Gary mentioned they're eliminating the 6-month long-term storage fees.
Amazon is eliminating the 6-month long-term storage
which is huge, because a huge part of my business when I'm sourcing offline for any bookseller is those what we call long tail books, the books that are slow but steady demand. They might be selling once every 6 months or even a year, but they have high value, high margins, right? That is like because
that was back in the day. We used to enjoy doing that.
Right, because you could ship them in and then leave them there for years and it just didn't even matter.
Right.
Because as long as they sold eventually, you don't care if they sell in a month but about a year and a half ago, these long-term storage fees kicked in that were brutal. And that's another thing, your wisdom strikes again, which is Amazon retreated from that. And so they're eliminating the long-term storage fees, which is amazing because it took so much fun out of the offline sourcing where you find this book that's ranked 6 million and it's selling for $100 and you're like, or maybe at $50, we'll say, but you're like, long-term storage fees are going to eat up the profits,
right.
Or maybe not 50, but like 30 or whatever, eat up the profits, and that's going away. So anyway, that's one of the good things that's changing. I can go on and on, but
you know so much. That's the beauty of it. What other questions we have here?
A lot of times, the new textbook issues. Oh, we talked about that. So new textbooks getting printed. So I think we just covered that. Mm-hmm. How does the change to long-term storage fees change a repricing strategy? Well, it just means I don't have to get extra vigilant about repricing lowering after 6 months. I mean, it's pretty simple. I do have a lot of thoughts on this subject on fbamastery.com where I talk about long-term storage fees. So basically, you can read that and just kind of work backwards from there.
Right. A lot more information about that on fbamastery.com.
And honest online selling.
This particular topic though, long-term storage fees and calculating and mitigating your risk. FBAmastery.com.
Okay, so Rachel says, I'm seeing many of my books having quite a bit of very low FBA offers with many copies for sale. So many that my book will not sell. Also, the other FBA offers are listed at such a low price I cannot get close to their price to make any profits. So this is a common, this is probably the biggest issue that people have is they go, okay, I bought a book and then I shipped it in, or a bunch of books, and then other lowball sellers came in and underpriced me. Okay, so there's a lot I could say about this, but I think a big thing that people miss that I like to, I started talking about this more recently, which is that one of the biggest indicators, one of the biggest like crystal balls as to whether you're going to get lowballed is how many overall copies are for sale, right? So you say you have two books. You can buy both of them for $5, just theoretical situation, $5, and the lowest FBA is $50. Both books are exactly the same except for one variable, which is that the total number of third-party sellers listing book A is 20, and the total number of book B is 80. Which book do you think is going to get flooded with lowball sellers any minute now? It's the book with 80 because there's simply there's a temporary imbalance in supply and demand that caused that book B with the 80 sellers, the FBA price to rise, whereas the FBA price for book A is probably more steadily historically around that level.
So the goal for somebody who's a bookseller like this Rachel that's talking right now with the question, the goal for her is to limit her choices in sourcing. By comparison, she wants to be finding books that have a lower number of FBA sellers.
Right.
And you're not to plug your software, but your software is one of the tools that makes that easy.
Sure.
The process easy.
Sure.
Right. Because you can actually use your software to limit the number of you limit your results to say books that have under 30 sellers.
Right. Yeah.
Correct. Okay.
And there is no magic bullet. Like you can never control what other sellers do, right? But that's the biggest way to reduce that risk. Yeah, everyone seemed to have the same question that Rachel asked. How to source brand new books at a very profitable price?
Oh, he's talking about going to like publishers.
Oh, okay.
Right. I'm assuming Peter has a question. How to source brand new books at a very profitable buy price? There's really no market for that.
I mean, that's not really my business as much, but I could give you some examples. I've had really good success going to particularly university presses, but also just general publishers and asking about what do you do with your overstock, your back catalog?
Oh,
like what do you do with those books, and then buying those. But one of the things about new condition books is that most new sellers are not permitted to sell them. They're restricted now. That's a recent thing.
They selling in new condition. Yeah. Major publishers, you're going to be restricted from.
Right. I fortunately got grandfathered in, so I don't have that restriction.
But the margin's got to be slim.
Well, with new condition books, I mean, the price is generally going to be high, higher than the used copy. But yeah, slim.
Buying direct from a publisher.
Oh, you're buying direct from a publisher, sure. I mean, it really does depend. One thing I would say do not get caught up in is like these, I forget the name, but like there's a lot of places that will just try to sell you like remainder books. And it's almost always a disaster. And people don't do the research. There's a lot of companies that sell you like pallets of remainder books. People get stuck with 100 copies of some cookbook, and they don't really understand that like you're not realistically ever going to sell those.
What to find a remainder book for those who don't know?
So it's just basically a book that is the book market in capital letters is just trying to get rid of. Okay. So like books in new condition that just didn't sell in the bookstores, that are just no longer strong sellers, are trying to just cast down to the third party seller market. So
interesting.
Yeah, so that's usually a big mistake, but new books can be very profitable. When you can get them cheap, obviously.
What's the top scouting app for
Scoutly
books?
For sure.
Scoutly, SCOUTLY is what Peter is recommending. Google it.
By far.
That's used to be called a seller tool.
Yeah, exactly.
And now it's called Scoutly. Okay.
Yeah, I mean that is just far away the best tool out there. More talk about mega sellers. What's funny? Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I put out a box set recently of just books, just kind of a Christmas special. But so people talking about Jensen Books. One of the people that bought my box set was the owner of Jensen.
I believe it. He wants to see what's going on.
He wants to see what's going on. But I was like, now I got the guy's email address. I was like, I want to do an interview with him and just put him on the spot and just go, dude, what's the deal?
I'm sure you never know. I'd say 50% chance that he'd say yes to it.
Here's the thing. I want you guys to know, I respect your privacy. I would never, if you bought something for me, I never tell anyone. But Jensen Books is like public enemy #1 for booksellers. So I have no problem. I have no problem.
You think they're making money, even though they're lowballing?
Dude,
you know what I think
volume. You know what I think they are? I have a theory that I cannot. They'll probably sue me for defamation because I cannot back this up at all. But I wonder. It's not a theory. I can't back this up.
I know what you're going to say.
I wonder if they are
a book publisher.
No, if they are the liquidators. How do I put this? If they're they process the overstock for the Deseret Industries thrift store, who is the Mormon Church thrift store, because they are based in Utah. And they do such huge volume, and they're in Utah. How could they possibly be getting their hands on so many books? Deseret Industries is a huge thrift store chain all through Arizona, up in maybe in Nevada, but definitely in Utah particularly, but also in Colorado and stuff.
And they have buying power. That's what you're saying.
I mean, it's just a huge chain. It's
really?
Get all these used books. How is this weird Jensen, the biggest FBA seller and bookseller in the world? How are they in random rural Utah? It doesn't make sense. And Deseret Industries barely puts any books on the shelves. It makes me think there's a relationship there. That is a totally unfounded theory.
Mystery.
How does one get ungated in textbooks? I've never heard of anyone doing it. And Amazon, as a matter of fact, well, hold on. First of all, I want to be clear. There is no one is gated.
Right. No one's getting specific editions.
Right.
For publishers or both.
It's specific books. It's title by title basis. Okay. There are certain publishers, McGraw-Hill, Cengage, and Pearson, that have a disproportionately high percentage of their titles that are restricted, but no publishers are restricted across the board. It's primarily about demand, and some formula. The restriction formula is some combination of like the year a book was printed and the demand. But I've even seen really old books restricted. It's some weird thing.
So no one individual seller is ungated from textbooks overall, but there are certain books that they may be restricted from, and is getting permission to sell that book very difficult.
It's I mean, Amazon tells you flatly they don't even accept
it. It's almost like DVDs.
DVDs you can actually get approved. Textbooks, Amazon will say, go ahead, shoot your shot. They'll say, take a shot at applying, and they reject almost everybody. But with textbooks, they just say, no, there's no application.
Interesting.
But this is one of the biggest myths, and it's worth addressing, which is that textbooks are not a gated category. It's one of those Facebook group like Amazon Seller Forum myths that textbooks are gated, and they're not. Some textbooks are. It's a very small percentage overall.
What's your second favorite book category to source after textbooks?
If we're talking about online sourcing, it's what I call textbooks in disguise or scholarly nonfiction, which are basically books that are primarily purchased by college students that don't look like
textbooks. Maybe Hemingway's
annotated edition of Hemingway. Yeah,
right. Okay,
exactly.
All right, and then in the offline world.
My favorite category. Oh my gosh! I mean, in the offline world, it's literally you just go after the weird. Like the money's in the weird.
Yeah.
If it seems so weird, you're like, why would someone publish a book about this? That's money.
Right.
So category by category basis is hard. I mean, I would still say textbooks if I knew there were no other sellers in the world and it was just a big field of books, I'd go for the textbooks. But those are usually the most picked over category in the secondhand market. So, the new age category of crop circles and chemtrails and crystals and stuff.
Wiccan, witchery.
Exactly. Anything that's
gambling, how to get rich. Well, not all. So there's some gambling, like gambling trick books that I've seen.
Yes, actually, that's a great niche is books on card games. For some reason, they're disproportionately high percentage of value. Yeah. Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else we got?
That's a great tip. James is talking about the Facebook. Is it Facebook Market? What is the Facebook where you sell you stuff on Facebook?
Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah. A local Facebook college. Oh, actually, you're talking about something else. So James is saying he sourced books. He finds postings for people giving away books on Facebook college sites. That's genius. That's actually genius. So these are sites. James, maybe jump in. We'll get to it in a second. But jump in and let us know what keywords we would search for. If by college site, do you just mean like University of Colorado, like general page, or is there some kind of like?
Well, he's saying local Facebook college site. So is there a Facebook page for UNLV? Is there a Facebook page for Notre Dame?
That's what I want to know. Is it or is there like people, UNLV students that want to give away stuff
that it happened to be located in Notre Dame or something?
Right. Okay. I'm curious. Okay. That's something a great tip. Will there be a replay link? So here's what I'm going to do. Jordan, we didn't even talk about this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the recording of this and I'm going to add it to this free course.
Yes.
So this is actually a really important point. If you have this course already, I haven't given away too many of these. If you have online book arbitrage, the video course and the ebook already, and you haven't signed up for that reason, you haven't opted in, it's free. Do it anyway, because I'm going to post the recording of this there. Would that be best, or do you want to just send out an email?
Yeah, that'll be.
I don't care either way.
That'll be fun. Maybe we can do both.
Do both. Okay. So the
you
point is, you will get
access to the replay. Yes.
But the best way to like have an archive of it is to sign up for the free course.
And where do they see that link when they're looking online?
So right now it should be right in front of you in the chat box. We can't see what you see, but you should see the big link.
The big picture that says online book arbitrage. It's blue and orange and green. You click on that and enter. They got to enter their email.
Enter email and it's free. That's all you need. Yeah.
Good.
This is okay. So Reed. Oh, what's up? I know you, Reed. I've been selling books for 15 years. I've been hit with the long-term storage fees. How do you deal with long tail books, usually merchant fulfilled books over 3 million sales rank? How do you deal with the long tails, and how do you decide what books to get out of FBA when they don't sell?
So let's define long tail. So Reed's having problems moving his inventory, right? That's sales book rank, seller rank of 3 million plus, right? Is that what he's saying? So it's 3 million, 4 million, etc.
Right.
So how do you cope with that? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, and there's no real like
hard and fast
sexy way to answer this, but basically it's knowing your numbers. It's understanding that it's very hard if you have a book listed for $25 and up. If you really know your numbers, it's going to be really hard for you to lose money in that book. I mean, I'm talking about it takes years. So there's the 50s. Now the long-term storage fees we're getting rid of these, so it's almost a moot point. Mm-hmm. But up until now it was like 50 cents a month. And so like that can add up, but even if you really look at it, like that's $6 a year, and it's like you really have to have that book in storage for a long time to lose money, right? So
interesting.
And most of the people that have the hardest time with long-term storage fees are people like us who've been around for a long time that are constantly comparing to the old days,
Right.
And that'll ruin you.
The good old days, yeah. Milton saying, can you give the link to how many? Milton, just do a Google search for how many Chrome extension,
or even go in the Chrome store and just search for how many.
Yeah. It's got to be there.
Actually, know the guy that makes that. He's super cool. So James says, how do you make best sites to sell signed
James
books?
is asking the best websites to sell signed books. But most signed books are not worth significantly more than in my experience.
I don't know how to answer that because that's not my business. Like that's an antiquarian collector.
If you have a book that's like signed by O.J. Simpson.
Right.
I'm assuming that's worth something, and I would assume it's got to be eBay.
I think if you actually want to go after the collector market, it's going to be Abe Books. Maybe a newer one.
AB.
Really? But here's the thing. My information is dated. Like they were the thing about 5 years ago. I canceled my Abe account about 5 years ago. So if there's some new thing I wouldn't know about it, but I'm almost sure it's still Abe. But here's the problem with Abe is that you're trying to appeal to a collector market, and no collectors are going to trust you because you're just rando with no feedback on Abe. And I've tried to sell, which is why I got out of Abe. I tried to sell my collectible books on Abe, and it just didn't do well because I didn't have I wasn't a credentialed, seller, antiquarian bookseller. And people that buy used collectible books, they don't only want to deal with other reputable sellers. They don't want to deal with people like us.
So he may want to go to a physical place that specializes in signed collectibles and sell it to them.
I don't know.
A business to business transaction versus a business to consumer.
I think you're right. I do think eBay is probably best if you just want to but I don't know if you'll actually get the true worth. I don't know. It's just not my business.
Yeah, you stumped us, James, but thank you.
Terry said he sold a book ranked 15 million for $400.
That must have been a one. Terry, was it one? Were you the only seller, or one of two sellers, maybe? Yeah. Terry says I sold a 15 million rank book for $399. First, that's encouraging, but it must have been where he was. It was a high value book to begin with, and there was only one or two sellers.
He probably was the only
seller. Period.
One of the tricks I teach is if you're the only seller of a book. There's certain types of books. If I'm the only seller, I'll price at $25. There's certain books I'll price at $100. There's certain books I'll price at $499. And I've sold 8 or 9 books of that.
Really?
And there's a way to look at a book. And this is where you get deep into the business, where you can look at a book and know, is this a $25 book, $100 book, $500 book? And there are certain books, because they're so niche in the demand, when someone wants that book,
they're going to pay the full.
They were going to, I sold a $500 book to Dole, the corporation.
I remember you telling me
because
that
it was
story.
a book on like every strain of mango. And I looked up and I was like, there is no other book on this subject in the world. When a mango aficionado needs this book, they're going to buy $500, and they did.
That's incredible.
David says, how can I sell instructor's editions when I find them? So instructor's editions,
we're talking about textbooks for clarity. Right. So there's textbooks and there's some that look identical, but they're the instructor edition.
Right.
And that's a common phenomenon.
Yeah,
right?
it's common. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and there's no issue at all with selling those books. You just have to sell them on the product page for the instructor edition. The mistake that people make is they go, oh, this book's the same, but it just says instructor edition at top. So they list it under the on the page of like the regular book,
yes.
and then that's when they get in trouble.
Students are buying it. They're thinking they're getting the book for the students,
right?
And they're getting the instructor edition. They get mad,
right? They get and yeah,
and they complain, and then you get enough complaints as a seller,
right?
And you're going to get disciplined by Amazon,
right? You just get booted. So,
but our instructor copies generally they're not nearly in demand,
right,
as the regular edition, nor value.
Actually, interestingly, the value tends to be probably higher on average,
really,
but the demand is much lower,
right? Because an instructor is an instructor versus the student,
right? So, like the average rank for a textbook is 250,000. Instructor's edition is probably 3 million. You know, but yeah.
So David, ensure that there's the Amazon page for the instructor copy if you decide to sell it.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. The rule of thumb about Amazon, particularly with books, if there's a product page for it, you can sell it. If the page already exists, there needs to be there's no other question. I mean, you might be restricted. That's another separate issue. But don't ever worry about Amazon getting you like punishing you because you sold something on a page they allowed to exist. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
yes.
Joyce, I always have an Amazon charging sales tax for items purchased.
How about TaxJar? Would that help her? TaxJar has
I think people overthink taxes on. I'm a bad person to ask.
Okay,
do you want to?
Joyce, I let my accountant handle that sort of thing, but try consulting the site taxjar.com. TaxJar used to have a Facebook page. I don't know if they still do, where they're answering questions from people, but I know taxjar.com has a lot of free resources discussing sales tax in Amazon specifically.
But I don't think you're obligated, Joyce, or else I'm in big trouble with the IRS. Okay, so Reed's asking about prep services. And so with the online sourcing model, it doesn't matter if you're doing books, whatever you're doing, you can actually source inventory online and have them shipped to what's called a prep service, who will take your inventory. They can list it if you want, whatever, but they ship it into Amazon for you. So you can run a whole business without ever seeing inventory. It's pretty amazing.
They're called, sorry to interrupt you, it's called third-party fulfillment centers. So Reed is asking, Reed is sourcing books in volume online, and he doesn't want to handle receiving the books himself, prepping them for Amazon FBA, and sending them into the Amazon FBA warehouse. You can have a third-party fulfillment center, I call them pre-fulfillment centers, receive the inventory for you, for your specific seller account, and send them into Amazon. I have a web page that discusses it, jordanmalik.com/fulfillment, JORDANMALIK.com/fulfillment. If you're confused, that will discuss the pre-fulfillment centers. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the question was just like, how much do they usually cost? And there's a pretty good range. The one I work with personally that I like the best, it charges $1.50 per book, and that's pretty much like there. You'll find some that'll do it cheaper, but and you'll find some that are as high as like $2.50. But $1 to $2.50 is pretty much the range that I've seen. So do you want to just cap it at the top of the hour?
Yeah. We got it. This is 10 o'clock. We've been live for 4.5 hours now.
Yeah. Or it's
right. No, wait a minute.
That's East Coast.
That's East Coast time.
But still, I do have to get to.
We've been live for an hour and a half. We do have to go. Peter does have to get to the airport. Thank you.
Wait, let's take a couple more.
Okay,
can we do that? Is that cool?
Yeah,
we have 4 minutes. I was going to say the top of the hour, so we have 4 minutes, and then we'll close out. Right. So, but Gary said he buys from Deseret, and they scan themselves. So Gary, do you know when they scan? I've never seen Deseret Industries Amazon seller handle. So, like, I still think Jensen's behind these Mormons. That's my theory. Had a suggestion on how to take customer ratings or how to generate.
Charlene wants to know any suggestions on how to get customer ratings. Charlene, I think you're saying if you sell a book directly to a customer, how do you get them to leave feedback? I use a software service that will generate emails automatically to each of my buyers. It's called Feedback 5. I've heard better reviews of a software I have not used yet, but they're from a very reputable company called Feedback Genius. They're from Seller Labs. So if I were you, I would investigate using Feedback Genius, and it will automate. Your goal is to email within the Amazon template, the Amazon restrictions. Email every buyer that buys from you to encourage them to leave feedback. So I receive no money by referring you to Feedback Genius. I would use them. Check them out. They're reasonably priced.
I've used them. Yeah, I don't use them currently, but I have used them in the past. I sign up for them when I get dinged with a couple negative feedbacks in a row, and I need like a flood.
They'll help you with that, huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it
automates it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Reed said he's seen less than 1% of textbooks restricted, and he's asking, is that your experience only in textbooks? Or he's saying he's only seen them in textbooks. So yes, that's my experience. It's hard to speak about in broad terms, because if you were to say just looking at books between ranked between 1 and 30,000, the number is going to be a lot higher than 1%, probably. It might be as high as like a third or something. So
really,
it's I don't want to say
it could be because of the latest editions, the higher
demand,
ones, the big publishers.
Maybe a third is being a little pessimistic, but I mean it's a lot more brutal on that. But then if you just more broadly speaking, 1% sounds.
There's far more opportunity than there is restrictions.
Oh yeah, by far. Someone's asking about the best course for book selling. Naturally, I'm going to say mine, but we don't go into that.
Well, mention it. Which one do you think is this the one that people are getting for free?
No, I mean, I have one called Amazon Altitude. It's just my big.
Okay, so to answer that, if you go to FBAmastery.com and poke around, there's a link to Peter's course called Amazon Altitude.
Terry shouts out Amazon Altitude. Keepa gives you how many. So Gary's saying that Keepa does the same thing how many does for free. I have compared side by side, and I found that Keepa will return, like it says we cannot get this data, or some little message says we can't get this data. And then when side by side with how many can get it. So I've had and it was like a significant percentage of the time that this happened. Keepa may have cleaned up their game, but I found it was worth the $15. So I think maybe this would be a good time for us to sign off. Sorry we didn't get to the last few questions, but I think we're good.
Right.
One thing, so we can so if you guys have any question about anything we've talked about, you can always email Jordan about anything related to Amazon and eBay selling, anything specific to online book arbitrage. You're welcome to reach out to me at this email address.
Support@zenarbitrage.com is Peter.
Yeah.
If you have questions for me, I'm JORDANMALIK.com, and there'll be a link at the top to contact me. And I want to thank everybody.
This was fun, man.
Yeah, we had a really good time.
Happy birthday again.
Thank you for
finally
getting to meet you.
Yeah.
He won't admit it, but he's one of my idols.
Please.
And this is great. We'll do it again.
Cool. And awesome. Thank you guys. Last chance to sign up for the free course.
Yes.
And we'll follow up with you guys over email. Jordan will. And
all registrants are going to get an email from us within the next 48 hours.
Yeah, and we'll give you a recording of this and all that stuff. So awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Steven, JordanMalik@gmail.com.
Cool.
Okay, thank you.
Take care, guys.